It's all about pressure. So hi, my name is Daniel Shai. I've struggled with insomnia and chronic fatigue for over 30 years until I recovered, and now I help others do the same. And in both cases, it's about pressure, but in different ways. And here, this is going to be more for the insomnia crowd, although there is some nuggets here for the fatigue crowd as well. But insomnia is really all about pressure. The recovery from insomnia is removing pressure. But this pressure can appear on all kinds of levels. It's not always so obvious. The more obvious level is pressure and anxiety that's coming from the medical field, actually, like ideas that you need 8 hours sleep. I have so much evidence stacked against that. I guarantee you that's an absolute myth. I might do a whole video about that. That would take a while to kind of present all that evidence. It's just a wrong way of thinking about it. It doesn't work like that. If I did not sleep 8 hours, then I'm deprived or something like that. Our brains are a lot smarter than we think. For example, it's expected that there will be some degree of variability in our sleep, and whatever cycle didn't happen enough the night before, the following night, you don't get the exact same percentage of the sleep cycles as you did the previous night. The brain knows what it needs more of, and you'll get more percentage of that particular stage of sleep, right, the following night. So the brain is always adapting, right? There's certain things that we can do from our end to support good sleep. One of the things is, for example, to have a regular sleep window, your time where you start to rest and the time where you get up, right? That consistency can help us in a very practical way. But the idea not only that we need to have 8 hours every single night and there's no room for variability, it makes no sense. But even, again, culturally, if you look at anthropology, there's tribes, for example, they never get to 8 hours sleep. The average, according to, I think it was Carol Worthman, an anthropologist, the average is around 5.7 hours and then 7.2 or 4, something like that, but it never actually reaches 8. There are people, genetically speaking, who have more of a short-term need for sleep, and that's correct for them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're genetically wired that way. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's not you need to sleep 8 hours, everybody, always. And there's no variability, not like we can't be different, have different sleeping patterns amongst us, and we have to get the same exact kind of sleep every night. Plus, a lot of this is sleep perception. That's something that's also been researched quite heavily, in fact. One of the more recent researches that have been done is, I think her name is Dr. Ellen Langer, I believe is her last name. She wrote something about the mind-body connection, right? And that the mind and the body are one. And she shows that in many ways, not just sleep, but one of her experiments was a sleep experiment where very, very briefly, again, I've shared this before, but very, very briefly, one group was basically got 8 hours of sleep, but was manipulated to believe that they got only 5. They changed their clocks. The other group got actually 5 and were led to believe that they slept 8. Then they tested their functionality, brain function, performance, response to stimuli the following day. And those who slept actually 5 but believed that they slept 8 actually functioned better, performed better in the tests than those who actually slept 8 hours. So sleep perception, how we respond to how much we've slept, plays a huge role, because the mind and the body are indeed one. The way we think has an immense effect on how our body reacts, even chemically speaking. What chemicals get more activated by our patterns of thinking, right? If we have very stressful thinking, that's going to probably activate more cortisol, more stress. in the body, and that's going to make us more tired. Anxiety is what I call it, like an energy leakage. It can leak a lot of energy. It's exhausting to be perpetually anxious. This is actually connected to chronic fatigue. Behind the fatigue, we don't feel it because maybe we feel very heavy and tired in chronic fatigue, but there is a perpetual anxiety, and it's coming from a very emotional, psychological place that until I start working with people, they think it's never that. But then when we go through the process, it always comes back to the same thing. There's something to do with self-perception, all right? And it's also connected to insomnia. There are deep-seated ideas we have about ourself, our worth, and this starts to go into social pressure. There's a performance pressure, performance anxiety, right? Where we're, very tense about performing well. That also goes into a deep-seated emotional and psychological thing, right? There's spiritual pressure, where there's a right way to be, to, like thinking of things as a reward and punishment, and just attempting to be, in a way, perfect spiritually or religiously, and to do it all right. And we put this pressure on ourselves, right? And all of it, ultimately, all of this pressure, no matter where it's coming from, and there are more places that I've seen in the sessions, but these are dominant areas, yeah? All of it comes down to one thing. And you're not gonna like this one thing, but that's the one thing it comes down to, and that's why this is the one thing I crack down on. Of course, it all gets addressed, but this is what is at the root. There is a desire or a belief that it's possible to avoid discomfort in life. So a lot of the spiritual work, for example, is an attempt to hold on to a state where there is no discomfort, right? I want to feel good all the time, so I'll hold on to some kind of practice that will make me somehow escape the uncomfortable sides of life, right? Performing well socially. Well, if I get other people's approval, if I look good, if I, not just look good physically, but if I look good to others, like I'm a good performer, I can escape maybe judgment, rejection, criticism, all those unpleasant things. And the issue here is a lot of needing validation from without, and instead of learning to have absolute and total and unconditional acceptance from within. Acceptance is a huge factor in recovery. And I'm not talking about just accepting the discomfort of the moment, which is a massive factor, but accepting yourself, no matter how you feel, no matter how you performed, right? There's an element perhaps of even forgiveness there. In my recovery journey, I had to learn that it's okay that maybe I did not perform even remotely as well as I wanted to in a given circumstance. But when I saw afterwards that I have the choice to either tell myself that I failed or that I'm a failure, or to have some kind of self-critical narrative, and how that made me feel, and it almost like seeing that my inner child needs something else. My inner child needs to know that, hey, I can accept myself even like this. Like, so what? So what? I don't have to be perfect. Why is there this condition that I have to perform perfectly before I can accept myself? Like, it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay, not that I really failed, right? But it is okay to fail. But it's okay to perform less than our ideal and perfect expectations, and we don't have to whip ourselves. Like, that is literally suddenly an insight that one can have, where they realize, oh, it's a choice. I can still be kind to myself. In fact, that's what I really need right now after this circumstance where I didn't perform as well as I wanted to. I actually need kindness here. So this is stuff that's actually, a lot of it is, again, it can be coming from religion or spirituality, but a lot of it tends to come from childhood, right? Where there's some kind of a non-acceptance. We had to perform well to receive approval or positive feedback and energy and love. And then we've internalized this non-acceptance, and we started to treat ourselves the same way that we've been treated, right? This conditional acceptance, conditional warmth and kindness. So that's not necessary. And as far as the nervous system is concerned, acceptance, self-acceptance is very soothing to the nervous system. It regulates it. It tells it, okay, life didn't go exactly as we wanted, but we're safe, right? And sometimes, oftentimes, you see, insomnia is so connected to perfectionism. People don't realize, I didn't realize when I had insomnia that I was actually a severe perfectionist, spiritually, and in this regard with performance and everything. It was almost like a period where I kind of like deliberately let myself mess up here and there. Not that I deliberately messed up, but when things weren't perfect, I let them go. I didn't overdo things. I didn't dwell on things too long until they were perfect and then show them to the world. Or I just let myself be imperfect. And I knew that that was of higher value than to get good feedback from the world by putting out perfect things and performing really well and looking really good to the world. It was of higher value in my healing journey to not look perfect and still accept myself. There's a very profound shift in your relationship with yourself that can happen from that, right? And so we talked about mentioned at least, the spiritual religious aspect, the social aspect. These put pressure on us, and the medical world, the physical ideas that come into our brains, right? That we need, like the 8-hour myth that I was saying, right? And so this whole part can be more debunked through education, through re-educating ourselves about sleep and how it actually works. And of course, within this realm of pressure on this level, on more of a bodily level of concern for our bodies and pressure and anxiety in that regard, of course, a lot of people come to me with health concerns, a lot of health anxiety. That's another thing that I had because of certain, things in my family line. But again, the issue here is not the content of the anxiety or the fear itself, but rather the anxiety. Not what the anxiety will always attach to something. What if that? What if this? What if that? You answer this thing, then it attaches to the next thing. You answer that thing, then it attaches to the next thing. So there's really something here about learning to rewire the brain to simply, the neural pathways can shift from an anxious way of thinking about things to more actually settling into actually coming back a little bit more into here and now. Not even in a spiritual way, not in order to attain something or be perfect, but just because we begin to understand what we can and cannot control, and we can spend our lives trying to control what we can't. But I mean, that is a real drainage of energy, and it is a real painful way to live in the mind, to always be concerned about what we can control. So we learn to bring our attention back to what we can control and how to think about things differently. And this is not just a mental exercise. In time, it literally rewires our brain in such a way that new neural pathways awaken or are paved or created, and we simply don't have the thing anymore. I used to have those health anxieties once, but it just doesn't come to me anymore, right? So the anxiety is a temporary thing. And that's what insomnia is ultimately. It's anxiety, it's fear about not sleeping or about what that might do to us, and etc. So it's all this pressure that is around this idea of sleep. Like, if I sleep well, then I won't have the health issues. If I sleep well, then I won't have the social stuff. I'll perform well. People will accept me. I'll do well in life. Good. Then I'll be able to also, if I sleep well, to do well spiritually or with my religious or whatever it might be, I'll be able to do well, right? We want to be perfect. And this idea of being perfect is actually an avoidance of something within that is asking to be healed. That's what it comes down to, really. So where I go to in my work is right down there to what is that thing that's asking to be healed, right? And once the pressure is removed, sleep happens as a byproduct. The anxiety is reduced because that part that is asking to be healed gets healing. So I hope that makes some sense. Of course, if you're watching this as somebody who's worked with me, it makes much more sense to you. But I think this makes some sense to people who have also just heard this maybe for the first time. This is really all about pressure. Pressure can come from many directions. And it's not about just meeting those expectations of perfectionism in these different areas, to be perfect in sleep, perfect in health, perfect socially, perfect spiritually. It's not about meeting that, actually. That's not where it's at. And like I said earlier, it's that idea of meeting that and being perfect in those ways and having that ideal is really an avoidance of something within that's asking for something softer. It's asking for a healing. Sometimes we call that the inner child, but that's what it comes down to. And again, it's like this idea that if I slept well, then all these other things would go well, and then I would be able to avoid discomfort. And again, it's another thing we have to open to, is be a bit more realistic with our expectations about life, we're never going to avoid discomfort. All right, the nature of life is duality, and life is going to always, like a wave, ebbs and flows, it's always going to be more comfortable and less comfortable. And the more we can accept the discomfort, the better, because the more we make an issue of it, the more it's inflated as an issue in our lives, rather than a natural thing that happens. And one last thing I'll add for those people who say, I'm starting to recover from my insomnia, but my sleep is not exactly the same as it was before insomnia. We have to understand that sleep also changes throughout life. It's not always going to be exactly the same from the day you were 20 till the day you're 80 or whatever. So aging has influences. There are many different things that are happening, right? Again, the variability of it. It's not a kind of, rigid thing like that. So yeah, sometimes at a certain age, you may never sleep exactly the same that you did when you were younger. That doesn't mean that your sleep quality has to be worse, but it means that your expectations about what sleep should look like might be out of touch with reality. So that maybe is a topic for another video. Meanwhile, I wish you really the best. I hope this helped you a little bit. If you wish to connect, check the links below, and I'm here for you. I do this because I want to be there for those who need it, like I wish somebody was there for me when I was going through it. I know what it's like, all right? Take care.